I am Bridget Panis. I'm from Defenders of Wildlife. This is a conservation organization, and we help protect and restore imperiled wildlife species across the U.S. And large part of my role is supporting our advocacy and digital fundraising work. So I'm in Engaging Networks a lot, doing our advocacy pages, donation pages, and I'm on like the production side of our email program.
And I'm Ashley Allison. I'm a senior account director at ABD. We are a full-service fundraising agency working in both direct mail and digital.
And my name is Matt Medeiros, he, him pronouns. I'm the senior digital advertising strategist at ABD Direct. So I work on our paid media campaigns, on the implementation, strategy, implementation, and reporting.
Awesome. Yeah, so what is our case study about? Right now, email still really remains the most effective and reliable tool for fundraising, but its usefulness does not end at the inbox. Since joining with Defenders in fall 2023, we've worked really hard to cultivate a powerful email program that is not only raising significant funds for their mission, but has also served as a tool for us to learn how to increase our reach across channels. So we're using the email program as really like a testing ground for how we are reaching audiences and potential donors across the entire internet ecosystem. And we've really kind of stuck to three main tactics for that. One, defending our deliverability. Two, building a really actionable reporting suite. And then using that reporting to maximize our best content and just take it all over the internet. All right, why does reach matter right now? So reach is really more than just a wonky buzzword. It represents the entire universe of people who are your activists, your donors. And to reach those people, we really, at this stage in online advocacy and fundraising, have to go beyond email. Right now, people are engaging on more channels than ever. You're probably feeling super overwhelmed. You're like, oh my God, I have to be on email and on Instagram and on Facebook and in Meta and search. And that's a lot, especially if you're a small organization with not a huge staff. There's also massive inbox competition right now. I have at least 200 unread emails at this moment just from being here from like the last day and a half. So we're competing against each other. We're competing against, ARC bills and, all the different advertising that you're getting. Protecting your email program. A lot of us invested a ton of money into our email program. You've done list buys, you've put a lot of thought into it. By expanding outside your email program, you're expanding your reach, but also protecting that list that you've invested so heavily into. Repeat exposure. We're now in a place where people expect to see your organization more than in their email. For instance, if you've gone to look at a pair of shoes on Zappos or something, now you're going to get an email, now you're going to see an ad. They're going to haunt you until you buy those shoes. And then high-value donors. We know statistically that a person who's giving on multiple channels is 3 times more valuable than a single channel donor. So we want to build that high donor list. So right now you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed, much like this North American pika, who is contending with climate change.
Alrighty, so we'll break it down for you in a couple different digestible steps. Tactic number 1 is defend your deliverability. When you think about using the email program as a starting point, you want to make sure you're building that email program in a healthy way. One of the industry statistic standards is that only 16% of your emails aren't getting into the inbox. They're going to spam or not going at all. And so we wanted to make sure that we took the approach and we're conscious about defending our deliverability and really improving it as well. So to make sure we are getting the most out of our email program. So to do that, as I'm sure many of you are fully aware, deliverability has a lot of aspects that go into it, and even internally, your send list may have different inclusion criteria or suppressions. What we're going to focus on for right now is that initial build. Who are you picking from in the first place? And so we built out this kind of multi-tier segment and engagement-based groups so that we kind of had this step one of our main audience, and then we could operationalize opening that audience up through different emails and kind of allowing people to come into the main group without sending to the whole list all the time, so that we were protecting our deliverability and not sending too often to these unengaged users. So having this list be dynamic was really important to improve our email program. And then you can also kind of like move from one to the other, because then once you open, you're in the standard audience, which is awesome. All right, so initially, this is really scary because you don't want to cut your list. But in reality, bigger's not better when it comes to a send list. And you're not actually removing anyone who's seeing your emails. So in reality, you're not actually, like, your total opens will stay fairly the same. And as we were able to grow our list, they just increase from there. We were able to get our send score up to 90 in validity, which is really awesome. And then we also, we implemented this in the fall of 2023, and over the last few years, we've been able to increase things like open rate, number of gifts, and average revenue raised per email. And I think the biggest part from doing this was the ability to grow our list in a healthy way. So in 2023, our larger sends were going to about 180K people, and we were looking at about a 35 to 40% open rate. And now in 2025, through a lot of different tactics, we're sending to about 425K people and maintaining a 45 to 50% open rate with that. So having this list as a starting point be dynamic meant that we could grow like we did in a healthy way.
Awesome. So tactic 2, building consistent and actionable reporting. The current online ecosystem really requires that you present your very best content and do it as quickly as possible. The consistent and actionable data system that we built with Defenders really helped us understand what was working best and be able to maximize it really quickly. So what you're seeing here is the 3-part reporting suite that we use with Defenders. The first top image is just their email report. This is just the email report out of Engaging Networks. We have built this spreadsheet that has some additional formulas in it that we pull everything into, and it really gives us a holistic view of how every part of the email is performing. And it lets us pick out what is doing best based on the benchmarks that we've established for Defenders based on their email reporting, and be able to pick out that top content really quickly.
And then this email report is really helpful for our paid media campaigns as well. I go over this with the email team and Defenders each week, and if anything is working particularly well, we adapt that for our meta ads or for peer-to-peer messaging as well. And then we pull a weekly ads report, which kind of lets us know if we can scale the spend quickly. And then we also do channel breakdown reporting. We do this on a monthly basis. We have like targets to meet, and it helps us keep an eye on just kind of the holistic digital fundraising program. If we're seeing that we're coming in under revenue, we can add in high-performing email resends or maybe send another text. And we just want to make sure we're not keeping those channels siloed. We want to make sure we're kind of looking at everything holistically and supporting the overall program and not each program individually.
All right, this was super helpful. So as before we went to this kind of higher frequency reporting, we were doing kind of post-campaign monthly reporting. And while that's still very important to kind of get overarching ideas and thoughts and a way to talk about your strategy from an overarching perspective, the frequency reporting allowed us to have these identifiable benchmarks that we were reaching, and kind of react responsively to that, which was really helpful to keep up with what we wanted to do. And it also allowed us to quickly look at any A/B testing we were doing and apply those learnings and use successful content elsewhere from the tests we were doing in email. And speaking of using successful content elsewhere, tactic 3 is really about the most effective way to maximize your reach is to maximize your content. So we wanted to start by looking at repurposing content where we could, and using, like Ashley said at the top, using our email really as a testing ground to help us approach the multi-channels that we're using.
Yeah, so what did we do in each different channel? For email channel, we were using that email report to really identify what was working and what wasn't. We were able to use that very actionable data to see what was going well and what was flopping. We could stop doing what was flopping and go harder on what worked better, and use it over and over and over again. For the non-email channels, we were able to identify some trends that were working with the audience and then use that on meta ads or on CTV or in PMax, which Matt will talk about a little bit more in a second. But let's look at what we did in email first. You can go ahead and start. Yeah, so this was what we refer to now as the Wyoming Wolf email. The first email went out. It was a very newsworthy moment. It was rapid response. A really terrible, terrible thing happened in Wyoming with a man running over a wolf with a snowmobile, which is totally legal in Wyoming. And then he took it to a bar and took photos of it. Won't tell you any more gory details. But the first email went gangbusters. Like, we were shocked. We saw the money rolling in, and we were like, let's just send it again. And we kept sending it over and over and over again. We changed the format. We added lift notes. We turned it into a fake forward. We sent this email, some version of this, at least 11 times, raising over $60K with basically the same content over and over and over again. So please don't be afraid to reuse your content. It's really important to remember that most people are only going to spend about 8 seconds looking at your email. So even if they open it, they might not remember it, they might not digest it. Go back again and see if you can get them again another time. Yeah, and then what did we do in the next?
So it can be scary to cut down your email list to improve deliverability. It looks like you're talking to a lot less people. You might have active donors that you're no longer emailing, but those people weren't responding. They weren't opening, clicking on your emails. And it doesn't mean that you aren't able to reach them in other ways. And so we use the email program to identify trends we can take to some other platforms. On the screen here, there are a couple of emails and then a peer-to-peer text message. And with the email reporting, we were able to see that this sort of like list content was performing really well across a few different emails. And we adapted that into a peer-to-peer text message. It ended up raising $29,000 for a like 420% ROI. And I think even more importantly, we actually reached about 140,000 people, 140,000 donors who were no longer receiving emails. They were people who weren't opening, they weren't clicking on those emails, and so they fell out of the audience. But when we structured these peer-to-peer audiences, we targeted like 2-year donors, and we also targeted people who had at any point given on a mobile donation page, since we were going to text them. And so we were able to reach a lot more people and re-engage them that way. And then when it comes to paid channels like Meta, we also, in Google Performance Max as well, which we've been using a lot more of recently, we take cues from what's working well on the email program. You've probably heard that a lot, but for us, it really works well. and it's a good way of getting content that we have a high degree of confidence that will work when we're going to put money behind it, because we want to be really careful with that ad spend. And so here we had a couple of emails go out. I think this first Bison email went out and it performed really well. And so we adapted that into a meta ad. In one case, we just used the image directly. It was a very similar version to what was there in the email. We didn't need to come up with a lot of new content. I think for the story placement, we did need to grab a different image, but overall, it was very quick to make that. And we were able to run these ads for a couple of weeks and raise just under $8,000 with a 200% return on ad spend. And recently on Meta in particular, we have had a lot more success in terms of profitability with running short-term campaigns pretty aggressively. They've just ended up with a higher profit than a lot of more like long-term, always-on strategies for defenders. And this method of seeing what's working well in the email list and copying that lets us do that with more confidence. And if we're going to run a shorter campaign more aggressively, it's more important to get that messaging right. And so the email list really kind of helps us with that. And then we've since also taken this Bison content. I think another example, we saw like a grizzly bear email do really well, and we've used that on Google Performance Max, where those have been always on now long-term campaigns that are performing well, and let us scale those up and find more new donors through those channels, as well as just raise more money and scale up our paid media campaigns.
Brief version of this is just that reusing content really opens up doors. We were able to turn a single 14K email into 1160K that raised a lot more than just the one without making too many edits. So it really just saves you time because you're not having to rewrite things. You're not having to go through the approval process. And so it really just helps you save that time and then reach your lists in other channels and have confidence when you're doing things like paid ads.
All right, so key takeaways. Defend your deliverability. If your emails are not getting into people's inboxes, it's squashing your reach. Strategic segmentation is a really great way to make sure that you are getting into inboxes, reaching the most valuable people. And just because you're cutting those people doesn't mean you're saying goodbye to them. Like Matt said, you could reach them in P2P. They might be more active in a different channel these days. Consistent and actionable reporting. If the bare minimum, start with regular email reporting. I know not every team has the capacity to do the level of reporting that you maybe saw a second ago. So just do regular email reporting. If you would like the template that we use with all the formulas, please reach out. We're happy to share that. That will give you a really great place to determine your organization's personal benchmarks so you know what to expect from your group. And then expand out if you have that capacity. And then maximize your best content. Don't be afraid to reuse. It'll save you time. It'll save you having to go and argue with your legal team, because we know legal teams are where good content dies. And then, make the most of it. Share it around, send it to your texting team, send it to your ads team, and let them try it out. Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much. We have several questions here. Starting at the top, how long do you usually wait before resending an email?
I feel like it could go either way. So for that one specifically, the first one was like a quick response, like time sensitive type of thing. And then I don't remember if you know how the time frame of the 11 emails, but what we did was we like tagged it into things that made sense. Like if we did like a resend, that might have been like a week later, but the content still would have been relevant with what's going on. Or we would call back to it in something like Wolf Awareness Week, which is coming up. And so reusing it in spaces and times that make sense again for that content, I think, is also important. So the time frame isn't necessarily a huge factor. It's more, is that content still relevant?
Relevancy, yeah, great. What suppressions did you add between each resend on the Wyoming Wolf email?
Just our normal ones. So we do have, like, if it was within the same campaign, we do have like if they've recently donated, they're not getting the rest of the appeal. But yeah, nothing additional. So there wasn't anything like calling out, did you give to a Wyoming Wolf email already? We didn't worry about that because, like I said, the content was still relevant, so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. If a supporter engaged in a non-email channel, did that get them back into the standard email audience?
Yeah. So if they donated, yes. If it was like an ad that they clicked on or something like that, or just clicked on the donation link in our peer-to-peer text message, in that case, they wouldn't be added back in. But if they did donate, then they would get folded back into, I think, that sort of standard audience.
Got it. Okay. Why choose 240-day donors? And the question asking person had said that we've been told the last 2-year donors for our actives.
So I don't know if do we want to go back to that slide? Can
Yeah. Sorry, do you?
I don't.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, for defenders, we the standard audience, all these audiences were like kind of iterative. So we kind of started at like the narrowest and built outwards, and that was kind of where the list tolerance came to.
And we also did like before we implemented this, we did a couple like dummy profiles where we said, how much does it decrease the file if we're doing this version of it or this version of it? So it was a little bit based on, like she said, we started with this and saw what the number was that came out, and kind of decided that like worked. Like that seemed like enough people still to talk to. So
Yeah, so not a hard and fast rule, but born of the experience and
Yes.
what you found. Yeah. Wonderful. There are a few more questions, but we are out of time. So I would encourage you to take a look at the Q&A and talk to these folks later. And thank you so much. There's a very active Q&A portion there. So if people had some